pretending to rejoin his fellows and then betray them again on the battlefield. He does this, but secretly gives the devils the demons' battle plans. When next the forces of Beator engage those of the Abyss, Bel rides with the Batazu, but switches sides again in the middle of fighting, just as he promised the demons. He then fights alongside the demons for a year and a day, and then leads them into a long-range Batazu ambush, crippling the Tanari for a decade, reducing them to defensively fighting from the Abyss. Bel is awarded for this elaborate double-double cross with command of the armies of Avernus. He serves Zariel as her loyal right hand for centuries, and then eventually orchestrates a coup, taking out Zariel and imprisoning her. Then he prepared to repel the assault Asmodeus and the other lords would lead, since hell is a lawful plane and taking control by force is typically against their laws. But no forces came. Instead, Asmodeus sent his constable Martinet, who congratulated Bel on his coup, and said that Asmodeus had decided not to make him burn in the pit of flame for eternity and support Bel as lord, as long as he continued to fulfill his obligations as a general to the Dark Aid. You see, Asmodeus wasn't a huge fan of Zariel at the time, always trying to scheme to take his position, just like every other Archduke. And Bel had no Archdevil allies, feeling a meager Pit Fiend wasn't worthy of the title of Archduke. Normally, Pit Fiends can be promoted to an Archdevil, taking on a unique form. Only then can they be promoted to Archduke. But since Bel took the throne by force, he remained in his Pit Fiend form, the only Archduke that was not a unique devil. By forcing Bel to still focus on his duties fighting in the Blood War, in addition to governing Avernus, that left him with little time to scheme against other nobles. In one fell swoop, Asmodeus had replaced a quarrelsome and conniving lord with a harried Pit Fiend with little support among the nobility. In 5th edition, Bel was demoted to Duke and replaced with Zariel. There's two different versions of the story as mentioned previously, but in both versions, there's no reason given as to why Asmodeus wanted to demote Bel. Zariel. Zariel is a fallen angel according to the Descent into Avernus origin story, and has only been a devil for a little over a century. In 2nd edition, she is described as being the first Lord of the First, presumably created when a drop of Asmodeus' blood landed in Beator, meaning she has been a devil her entire existence. Because she is never an Archduke in 1st through 4th edition, and is being held prisoner that entire time, there's not much mention of her personality in those editions. 5th edition, however, does give some insight into her personality. Zariel the Angel fell because she was obsessed with the Blood War and wanted to rid the multiverse of all fiends by bringing the fight to Beator. She was defeated and imprisoned. By swearing fealty to Asmodeus, Zariel could bring her rage against the demons and continue the fight in the Blood War, with legions of devils under her command. The strategies of devils shifted dramatically when she took over. Her fiery temperament and reckless maneuvering contrast starkly to Bel's expertise in logistics and military tactics. Bel intentionally does nothing to discourage her battle plans, and hopes that she overextends her forces and faces a defeat that will result in her demotion. Zariel lives to fight, and bases her assessment of individuals on their fighting prowess and usefulness in combat. She is no politician. The Dukes of Avernus. Every Archduke of Hell has dukes that serve directly underneath them. In 1st edition, while Tiamat ruled, her dukes consisted of Amducius, who was in charge of 29 companies of Abishai, Malthus, who was in charge of 40 companies of Abishai, and Gop, who was in charge of 3 companies of Orestes. In 2nd edition, while Bel was in charge, he had the same 3 dukes that Tiamat had. In 5th edition, while Zariel is in charge, Bel is one of her dukes after being demoted from Archduke, and he is in charge of a forge, manufacturing weapons for the armies of Hell. In 3rd edition, strangely, it says that Avernus has no dukes. Now, there are more than the 4 dukes I've mentioned in Avernus. Presumably, each lord would have a lot of dukes that go unnamed, and there are plenty of other ones that have been named, just not in major source books, but instead scattered throughout articles of Dragon magazine, and I'm not going to list all of them. Inhabitants. Although Avernus is the forefront of the Blood War, and thus legions of every type of devil will be stationed here, the most common Batazu you will find in Avernus are Lemures, Nuparibos, Imps, Orestes, Abishai, and Spinagons. In addition to devils, you can also find dragons, goblins, and kobolds. Avernus is big. Some editions say it's infinite. So although the Lord of the First technically controls all of it, and countless legions of devils are stationed here ready for war, there is still huge swaths of the wasteland that cannot be controlled and monitored. Within these sections are outcast devils. Devils that were exiled, ran away to escape punishment, or simply wished to leave the infernal hierarchy and do their own thing. Many of these were dukes or archdevils that were exiled to Avernus specifically by Asmodeus. In the 5th edition module Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus, some of these outcasts are just regular devils, not archdevils, that form war bands that roam around the Avernian wasteland riding Mad Max-style war machines. And many of these warlords aren't even devils, but are mortals from other planes as well. Although those specific details are from 5th edition, the concept of rogue devils roaming the lawless chunks of Avernus has been in the lore since 1st edition. Moloch, who was an archduke in 1st edition, got exiled and could be found roaming Avernus in multiple editions after that. However, in 5th edition, they changed it so that whenever he's in hell, he gets demoted to an imp, and thus is only at full power when residing outside of hell. Now let's move on to the various locations you can find within the first layer of hell. The Bronze Citadel is the seat of power of Avernus. Since Avernus would be the beachhead to any Tanari invasion, when Bel was in power, he was constantly adding new walls and fortifications to the Bronze Citadel. It now spans hundreds of square miles of territory and features 12 concentric rings of walls, each bristling with war machines. In the center of these massive fortifications lies the original Bronze Citadel. While Bel ruled, each member of the Dark Eight maintained a household within the Citadel so they could confer with Bel about the Blood War. 5th edition makes no mention of the Bronze Citadel, and instead Zariel rules from a 450-foot-tall, flying basalt citadel that is shaped like a sword blade and fueled by souls extracted directly from the river Styx. However, this flying fortress is not unique to just her. She has many of them that she uses to defend Avernus with. Considering this is just another, albeit large and advanced, war machine for the Blood War, I would assume she would still need a stationary place of rulership. I like to think the Bronze Citadel still exists, but who knows? Wizards of the Coast might have retconned that out, just like so many other cool things in 5th edition. Tiamat's Lair. It is blocked by the Maggot Pit in 2nd and 3rd edition, and it is near the Pillar of Skulls. This giant cave is home to Tiamat, queen of evil dragonkind. She is attended by her 5 dragon consorts, male great worms of each chromatic color. According to most sources, her lair guards the only entrance to Dis, or at least the most well-known and accessible entrance. It is also always guarded by dragons, dragon petitioners, and an army of Abishai. In 3rd edition, it is described as a jagged, crown-shaped mountain redoubt with 5 watchtowers, each carved to resemble a dragon head that curve out from the structure. It still maintains the cave entrance on the other side of the Maggot Pit, like in 2nd edition, but its main entrance is a hole in the roof only flying creatures can get in. In 5th edition, there really isn't much information on what her lair is like. All we get is that in Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus, page 112, there is a monument dedicated to her right outside the entrance, a colossal dragon skull leaning up against the mountainside. Abishai of all colors nest in sulfurous caves, and scores of white Abishai will swarm out to attack anyone who assaults her lair. In the Rise of Tiamat module, we get a description of Tiamat's temple, which is located within her lair, but it isn't the lair in its entirety. It is a 5-pointed temple dedicated to her worship, apparently empty and filled with nothing, just a wide open space to praise her in. Drakari. Drakari is the divine realm of Kurtlenak, the god of kobolds. In 2nd edition, we get the following descriptions. Its entrance is located in a small cave near the Pillar of Skulls, where you must travel down thousands of feet. It is a sprawling mess of tiny, winding tunnels that is easy to get lost in, requiring an intelligence check every hour to not become lost. Once lost, there is a 10% chance per hour to regain familiar ground. Traveling the tunnels isn't restricting, as long as you're 3 feet tall. Otherwise, you must squeeze, and it becomes rather difficult and dangerous. Life in Drakari is nasty, brutish, and short, and the place is filled with hateful kobold petitioners. They will gladly kill gnomes whenever they can, even leaving Beator to do so. They sell valuable gems to the highest bidder, although devils can afford a lot, so these prices tend to be exorbitant. Drakari has 3 cities that are really just big worlds. Nibelin, with a population of 40,000, Frexstavik, with a population of 30,000, and Sniarl, with a population of 5,000. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing those right, I'm doing my best, guys. 3rd edition describes Drukhari as being so overpopulated, it's practically bursting with culprits, and occasionally there are so many that they break out into a civil war that pulls the weakest of the fiends and gives the strongest some momentary breathing. Blood seeps from the surface above and drops onto the inhabitants, covering their skins completely, acting as a lubricant that allows them to wiggle through the mass of fellow fiends more effectively. The Peaceable Lands. This is the divine realm of Bardrithak, the goblinoid deity of unity and cooperation, titled Peacekeeper for his role of encouraging teamwork between the various goblinoid races and tribes. However, he was also a god of territory, and his peacekeeping role did not extend to creating positive relations between goblinoids and other races. Just like his title, his domain's name of the Peaceable Lands was also misleading, for it was where goblin legions went through regiments of harsh training in calisthenics. The only information I could find on this place is 3 sentences on page 132 of On Hallowed Ground, so I don't know where in Avernus it is or what it looks like. The Maggot Pit. The Maggot Pit blocks access to Tiamat's lair. It is a huge crater easily 1,000 feet across, filled with ooze and writhing maggots. It is from this primordial soup that writhing lemures and Nuparivos spawn. In 3rd edition, tortured soul shells were thrown in, eaten by the maggots, and their remains transformed into lemures. 5th edition makes no mention of the Maggot Pit, and instead lemures are spawned from the river Styx. The Pillar of Skulls. The Pillar of Skulls is a landmark that is near the entrance to Tiamat's lair and the entrance to Drukhari. In 2nd edition, the pillar is composed of living, disembodied heads of mostly human or humanoid races. They are squashed together to form a solid mass at least 10 feet round and 20 feet tall. They are constantly talking, cursing, and arguing with one another, and you'll hear the tower before you see it. In 3rd edition, the pillar rises more than a mile high, and it is made entirely out of demon skulls, representing trophies of the Blood War. Darkspine. Darkspine used to be one of the gate towns of the Outlands, but the devils conquered it, and it was pulled into Beator, making Ribcage the new gate town. This process has been done many times, and other abandoned gate towns dot the landscape of Avernus between Darkspine and the River Styx. Most of the original inhabitants of Darkspine fled or were slain, and little remains of the town. The few remaining survivors scour the rubble of the burned town for whatever valuables they can find and fight viciously over them. The one who ruled the town when it still remained in the Outlands is Alfredo Mazalik, who still rules it now as part of the agreement he made with the Batazu in exchange for helping them bring Darkspine into Beator. He feels they didn't honor the rest of the deal, so he is a shattered man now, doing nothing to rule and sitting alone in the Great Hall, brooding about his lost plans. Abishai wandered Darkspine looking for interlopers, so they can ask them to swear fealty to Bel. Those who don't are taken and either never come back or returned blasted in body and spirit with the sigil of Bel branded on them. The town has quite a few traders who set up shop here, using it to store their wares when traveling Beator and selling gear to help survive the lower plains when they are in town. They accept gold and gems as payment if they are going back to the Outlands, and they accept services and souls as payment when going deeper into Beator. Rumors have it that a small resistance is forming in Darkspine. That information is from 2nd edition. In 3rd edition, it only says that it boasts one tavern known as the Pig and Boak, and the barkeep, a harvester devil named Jebelim, will serve unwary customers. She will attempt to get them to sign a Faustian pact, and if she can't, will report on their apparent capabilities with one of the Dark Eight. It makes no mention of any others living within Darkspine. The River Styx. You probably already know about the River Styx. It flows through the top layer of all of the lower planes, and non-fiends who fall in it lose their memories. One fun fact about it is that it used to be the edge of Avernus, marking the border of the layer. However, when devils conquer other places and cities from other planes, they are dragged into hell and become a part of Avernus. They've done this so much that now the River Styx is in the middle of the layer, everything on the other side of it being chunks stolen from other parts of the multiverse. The Garden. The Garden is a beautiful garden. Babbling brooks of clean, pure water, trees rivaling the heights of Arborea, with fruits and flowers hanging well within reach. Wide lakes and rolling hills all occupy the garden. You don't need to worry about running out of food or water while here. This place is a safe haven in Avernus. Batazu refused to enter the garden, and violence is physically impossible here. Everyone is always happy in the garden. Eventually, one of its inhabitants will disappear, leaving no trace.